Hello everyone, I am Quartermarch437 and today I am going to be doing another thoughts on video for a control C video that someone else made. In this case, I am talking about ExtremeGeography's US 22 video. And the reason I'm doing this is because I had too many thoughts on this video to just give a simple comment on, and I wanted to make this last week, but me being the dummy that I am, I forgot to record it last week as of when I'm actually doing this, May 14th. I wanted to do this on the 7th, but I forgot. But here I am now doing this. And so let's get the video started.
In today's video, we're covering US 22, and we're also going to see how inconsistent PennDOT is in signing its control cities. US 22 goes through Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, being 648.84 miles long. Here is US 22's complicated beginnings in downtown Cincinnati and numerous highways. Here, when we meet I-71, it is sensibly sized.
Yeah, I-71, where is it? Yeah, I-71. Yeah, I can't see the shield that's right there. Like, this is one annoying thing that he does. Like, seriously, it's right there. I don't know. You could put, like, an arrow or something, or you could just, I don't know, do nothing at all.
It is sensibly side north for Columbus.
I like this, though, the location, and also, like, an indicator at the bottom left. That is good.
Columbus. When we meet I-71 again, we receive no control city, only seeing Montgomery Road.
Again, like, also the arrows, like, dude, I can see it right there.
Road. When we meet I-275, the Cincinnati Beltway.
Although, actually, right there, in this case, this is fine because we don't see 275 in here. We have no indication that this is 275. So, I mean, yeah, maybe it's a bit hypocritical for me to say that, but, like, I don't know. I think in some instances this is okay, but, like, other times you should just let the shields speak for themselves.
The Cincinnati Beltway, we are now signed for Morrow. I couldn't find anything in Morrow, but when we meet Ohio 350, we are now signed for Wilmington and 10 miles. In Wilmington.
Yeah, Wilmington and 10 miles. Yeah, I could see the place and the distances.
Wilmington, we meet Ohio 73, and we are now signed for Washington Courthouse. In Washington Courthouse, we meet US 35, and we are now signed for Hillsborough and Washington Courthouse.
Actually, again, I'm not gonna lie. This time, it's kind of warranted. Like, you wouldn't know what CH meant because it could have been anything, I guess. So, I don't know.
Washington Courthouse is still there because we actually haven't reached downtown nor the city limits yet. But anyways, Hillsborough is for US 62 and Washington Courthouse is for all three of the highways. In downtown.
By the way, check out the Dirtpogs US 62 videos. I'm going to be leaving a card for those in the top right corner.
On Washington Courthouse, US 62 and Ohio Free leave us, and we are now signed for Washington Avenue, having no control city. However, when we meet Ohio 753 just east of Washington Courthouse, we are now signed for Circleville in 25 miles. I skipped past Circleville because we received no control city there. Anyways, when we meet US 33 southwest of Lancaster, we are signed for Lancaster. Just like in Circleville, there was no control city, so I skipped past it. In Rushville, we meet Ohio 664, and we can see we are now signed for Somerset in 8 miles. In Somerset, we are now signed for Zanesville in 20 miles. In Zanesville, we turn right and receive no control city in the process, however. When we meet I-70, we are now signed for Norwich, which has a population of 87, just like Cambridge from here. Norwich didn't really have anything control city related, and so I skipped to New Concord, where Cambridge is signed at 8 miles. In Cambridge, we get no control city, but when we meet I-77, we're now signed for Cadiz. In Cadiz, we meet US 250, and we're now signed for Steubenville, which should have been signed since the I-77 interchange, but Cadiz was signed because of this interchange right here. In Steubenville, we're now signed for Weirton and Pittsburgh, which I'm glad they didn't only sign Weirton here. Here we cross.
By the way, like, one reason I'm pausing so much to give, like, this feedback is because if I didn't, he'd be like way ahead of where where I was actually like talking about, because he talks so fast. The pacing is so snappy, it's ridiculous. You barely get any time to breathe.
Into West Virginia over the Ohio River, and that state welcome sign is pretty cool, not gonna lie. Here we have an interchange with West Virginia 2 for downtown Weir, and we also receive a pull-through sign for Pittsburgh.
Right there.
Well, that was a brief foray into West Virginia, but now I must brace myself for the misery that's about to come. Also, quick shout out to Xavier's video on US 22, it goes more in depth on the route in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know.
Specifically focusing on the route there. The video will be in the description if you want to check it out after you're finished with this. When we meet Pennsylvania 18, Pennsylvania actually sticks to signing Pittsburgh in 25 miles. When US 30 joins US 22, we are still signed for Pittsburgh. Here we meet I-376 and join along with it going eastbound for Pittsburgh into I-79, while westbound is signed for the airport.
Gee, I would have had no idea if you didn't point it out.
When we meet I-79, US 22 and 30 are still unsigned, and we have the same control city as earlier. When US 30 leaves I-376 and US 22, it's signed for Forest Hills, which I think it should be Greensburg here, though. When I-376 ends, we meet I-76 for Ohio and Harrisburg, and we are now signed for Murraysville. This sign is in some poor conditions anyways, so when it gets to Murraysville, we are now signed for Evansburg at 51 miles, and we are now about to see one of the cases of PennDOT's inconsistencies of signing the same control city. When we meet Pennsylvania 66, we are now signed for Blairsville. What happened to signing Evansburg? Despite the fact that these two cities have a mere difference of around 200 people, just stay consistent. Why are we changing it to Blairsville?
Also, why are we not signing Altoona?
Here we meet US 119 and it joins a concurrency, but now we're signed for New Alexandria. What happened to Blairsville and Evansburg? PennDOT, pick one and please stay with it. 1 mile down the road in New Alexandria, we meet Pennsylvania 981, and we are now once again signed for Evansburg. Well, let's say find out the next episode. No, I'm kidding. When US 119 leaves us, it is now signed north for Indiana, the city, not the state. It actually did stay, but anyways, in Evansburg, we meet US 219, and we are now signed for Hollidaysburg. Just sign Altoona from here. Here, US 22 exits itself for Hollidaysburg and Duncansville, and if you continue straight, you meet I-90.
Oh yeah, also, well, I did a video on 99, Xavier did a video on 220, which is also effectively 99 in Pennsylvania, and Todd did a video on 99, so...
99 for Altoona and Bedford. In Hollidaysburg, when we meet Pennsylvania 36, we are now signed for Huntingdon. West of Huntingdon, we meet Pennsylvania 26, and we are now signed east for Mount Union. In Mount Union, we meet US 522, and we are now running concurrently with it for Lewistown to 22 miles. In Lewistown, we meet US 322, and we are now running concurrently.
Also, I made videos about 320. I made videos about 322. I'm gonna have those up in the corner as well. Go check them out because Jay didn't tell you to.
Currently with US 322 and 522 for Harrisburg and Selinsgrove. Harrisburg is for US 22 and 322, and Selinsgrove is for US 522. But when US 522 leaves us, it is now signed for Walnut Street instead of Selinsgrove. In Harrisburg, we meet I-81, and US 322 leaves us to join I-81, and we are now signed for Harrisburg because we're not in downtown yet. When we meet I-83, we receive no control city, only having Jonestown Road on the sign. When we meet Pennsylvania 39, we are now signed for Allentown in 70 miles. Here we meet I-78, we are now running concurrently with it for Allentown. I think this slide should say Allentown/New York City instead of Allentown by itself. West of Allentown, we leave I-78, and we are now signed for 2 I-476 at the Lehigh Valley Airport, which I heard is 56 Airport at first. Heroes of Olympus has really done something to me. If you get the reference, you're a W, by the way. When we meet I-476, we are signed for Allentown instead of the Lehigh Valley Airport. When we meet Pennsylvania 145, which will take you to downtown Allentown, we are now signed for Bethlehem, which is literally a suburb of Allentown. Just sign Easton from here. Here we meet Pennsylvania 987, which will take you to the Lehigh Valley Airport. At the end of Pennsylvania 378, we are now signed for Easton. In Easton, we are now signed for Phillipsburg and 2 I-78. Here we cross into New Jersey over the Delaware River. This is
that's a beautiful picture. Where is it?
2 I-78. Here we cross into New Jersey over the Delaware
God, that is a fantastic picture. Holy mackerel.
River. This is an interesting state welcome sign, if I were to say so myself. At the beginning of New
And we don't get very many of those.
Jersey 57, we are now signed for New York City, which is an amazing choice here. Here we meet I-78 again, and we are now running concurrently with it and receive no control cities. When we leave I-78, it is signed for Newark. It should be Newark/New York City, and we are now signed for Annandale, which you're actually already in, and Lebanon, which makes sense because if you want to go to Newark or New York City, you could just stay on I-78. When we reach Lebanon, we are now signed for Somerville. In Bridgewater, which actually should probably be signed instead of Somerville, we meet I-287. We are now once again signed for New York City. And here's US 22's ending in Newark and New Jersey 21 for Newark because we're not in downtown Newark yet, and US 1 and 9 for 2 I-78 in Port Newark. From US
Again,
189,
I would have had
we
no
assigned
idea
signing
those
Union, and
those
this
are
is
on
pretty
that
much the exact
sign.
same
If
thing
you
on New
didn't
Jersey
lately
21
put
Day, it
that.
just doesn't have Union on it. When we meet the Garden State Parkway, we are now signed for Somerville. When we meet I-287, we are now signed for Clinton and 2 US 202 and 206. When we reach Clinton, we meet I-78, we run concurrent with it for Annandale. This should be Allentown here. When we leave I-78, we are now signed for Phillipsburg, and I-78 is signed for Pennsylvania. Once again, just sign Allentown there. Here, we are now crossing over the Delaware River back into Pennsylvania. This state welcome sign's kind of mid, I'm gonna be real. Who wants to pursue for happiness in Pennsylvania with their bad control cities? In
Also,
Easton,
this doesn't
we are now
look
signed
good.
for Bethlehem and Allentown. Just sign Allentown from here. When we meet Pennsylvania 145, which will take you into downtown Allentown, we are now signed correctly for Harrisburg. When we meet I-476, we are still signed west for Harrisburg. Here we meet I-78 again, and we are now running concurrent with it also again. When we leave I-78, we are now signed for 2 Pennsylvania 343, Lebanon, and Fredericksburg, which makes sense over signing Harrisburg because you would just stay on I-78 in that case. In Fredericksburg, we are now signed for Indian Town Gap in 9 miles. Just sign Harrisburg from here. Here we meet Pennsylvania 72, and we are now once again signed for Harrisburg. When we meet I-83, we have no control city, only having Jonestown Road up on the sign. Here we meet I-81, and we are now running concurrent with US 322 for Lewistown and State College. Lewistown is for both of the highways, and State College is for US 322. When
And
US
State
322
College
leaves us for
is
State College,
State College is where I used to live for a long time. It's where I was born. That's my hometown and all. So, shout outs to State College.
we now have US 522 joining us. We are now signed for Mount Union. In Mount Union, US 522 leaves us. We are now signed for Huntington in 11 miles. West of Huntington, we meet Pennsylvania 26, and we are now signed for Hollidaysburg. In Hollidaysburg, we meet Pennsylvania 36. We are now signed for Evansburg in 20 miles. Here, US 22 exits itself, and we are now signed for 2 I-99 and US 220 and Evansburg. When we meet US 219, we're signed west for Blairsville. This should be Pittsburgh. Matter of fact, it actually should be Pittsburgh from Hollidaysburg. In Blairsville, we are now signed west for Pittsburgh in 43 miles. When we meet I-76 and I-376, we are now running concurrent with I-376 for Pittsburgh. When we meet I-79, we are now signed west for the airport, and I-79 is signed north for Erie. When US 22 and 30 leave I-376, we are now signed west for Weirton. And here we are back in West Virginia. In Weirton, we're now signed for Steubenville and Wheeling. Steubenville is for US 22 and Wheeling is for West Virginia too. Welcome back into Ohio, and this is quite an interesting state welcome sign if I were to say so myself. In Steubenville, we are now signed for Cadiz. Here, US 250 leaves us after concurrency with it, and we are now signed for Cambridge in 41 miles. When we meet I-77, we are still signed west for Cambridge. When we meet Ohio 723, we are now signed for New Concord in 7 miles. In New Concord, we are now signed for Zanesville in 15 miles, skipping over Norwich. In Zanesville, there is no control city, but in East Fultonham, we meet Ohio 345, and we are now signed for Somerset in 10 miles. In Somerset, we receive no control city, but in Rushville, we meet Ohio 664, and we are now signed for Lancaster in 10 miles. When we meet US 33 past Lancaster, we are now signed for Circleville. In Circleville, we meet US 23, and we are now signed west for Washington Courthouse. In Washington Courthouse, we don't get a control city, but west of Sabina, we meet Ohio 72, and we are now signed west for Wilmington in 9 miles. In Wilmington, we get no control city, but in Clarksville, we meet Ohio 380, and we are now signed for Cincinnati in 42 miles, but it'd actually be faster to go up to I-71 instead, but I'm gonna just skip to the Cincinnati Metro. When we meet I-275, the Cincinnati Beltway, we are now signed for Montgomery. We're now actually signed as a north-south route, though I have no clue when this change happened, but anyways, when we meet Ohio 126, we receive no control city, only having Montgomery Road. When we meet I-71, we are still signed for Montgomery Road and nothing else. When we meet I-71 again, it is signed north for Columbus. I couldn't really...
I appreciated this slide because again, like I can see all the information right there. I don't need the friggin' arrows. But again, like this is cool, the location, and then also like this, yeah. But like all the other stuff, I don't know. I don't know if you
Again,
need
it is signed
all
north for
that.
Columbus. I couldn't really find the exact ending to US 22 westbound to downtown Cincinnati because it splits into 2 different roads, but I think it's somewhere around here. The control cities for eastbound should be nothing, I guess, at first, because I-71 is a faster way to go anywhere that could be a control city. Then in Montgomery signed Morrow, then Wilmington, then Washington Courthouse, then Lancaster, because 1, it's 4 times larger than Circleville, and 2, there's those going to take US 23 in Circleville. Then Somerset instead of Zanesville, because it's 1 minute faster to go up to I-70. Then in Rushville signed Zanesville. Then Wheeling, because we're parallel to 70, so you could go to it anytime. Then when you meet I-70, sign New Concord, because it's a faster way to stay on 70 to get to Cambridge. Then sign Cambridge when you get to Norwich. Then Steubenville, because it's 3 times larger than Cadiz. Then Weirton/Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh is so much larger. Then Pittsburgh by itself. Then skip all the other cities inside Altoona, because US 22 is the fastest way to it from Pittsburgh. Then Hollidaysburg. Then Lewistown, because it's larger than Huntington and Mount Union. Then Harrisburg. Then Progress, because there's many other annexes in the area that you could take to get to anywhere. Then Scranton, because we're parallel to I-81, so you could go to it anytime. Then Allentown when you start paralleling I-78. Then Easton after Allentown, skip Bethlehem. then New York City, skip Phillipsburg, Somerville when you leave the concurrency with I-78, then Union because there's so many other routes in the area, then New York City after Union. And for westbound, it should be Union, then Somerville, then Clinton, don't sign Lebanon or Annandale, then Allentown during the concurrency with I-78, then Phillipsburg when you leave the concurrency, then Allentown, skip Easton, then Harrisburg, then Fredericksburg when you leave I-78 again, then Jonestown, then Scranton because we're parallel to I-81 so you could go there anytime, then in Paxtona you could sign Harrisburg, then Lewistown, then Mount Union because it's best to go to I-99 to get to Altoona, then Altoona, skip over Huntington, Pittsburgh, skip all the other cities, then Weirton, then Steubenville, then Cambridge, then Columbus because of the upcoming interchange of I-70, then nothing, I guess, because it's faster to stay on I-70 to get to Zanesville, then Somerset because it's faster to go up to I-70 to get to Lancaster, then Washington Courthouse, skip Circle B because there's still no reason to take US 23, then Wilmington, then Morrow, then Montgomery, and then for the rest of the route, nothing. By the way, I said all of these instead of skipping to Cincinnati from Zanesville because it's actually faster to take 70 to 71 in Columbus to get to Cincinnati. If you enjoyed today's video, please subscribe. I have other videos on my channels where I cover more US highways, and I also cover interstate highways and state highways.
And then the video just completely ends abruptly. So, with that, that'll be the end of this video. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Be sure to check out the videos that I and some other people have made that I'll leave again in the cards and down in the description. So, until the next video, everyone, I'll see you then. Peace. Have a good one.